everyone, Tony Winston here, struggling through Red Garland's solo on A Foggy Day in London Town, and I had a request to kind of analyze this solo, so I spent a few minutes working on it, and most of it makes a lot of sense, but there's a few places where it's really kind of difficult to figure out exactly what he's thinking. Now this is kind of like the kickoff to lead into the solo. Everywhere. And that's where the solo starts, right here. One thing when you're working out somebody else's solo like this, it's kind of interesting to try to figure out what fingering they used and what little elements do they kind of keep going back to and using again and again. And one of them is this kind of, this little thing here. That's in the solo more than once, I do believe. Let's start here at the beginning. 1. And typically, a Red Garland will play his chords on the and of 2 and the and of 4. So 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. Kind of like that. Not all of them, but most of them. Or 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, like that. So here we go. 2 and 3, 4 and 1. Right here, I think it's a mistake. I think that's what he meant to do. You know, who knows? And then it's interesting that he plays this chord like it's an A, altered dominant. Even the chord symbol indicates that. And then puts this note in, which doesn't really fit, but it's like part of the bebop scale, right? So I think what he is able to do is to get that left hand playing the right chords on kind of automatic pilot. He's doing it without thinking, just going through, you know, it's kind of muscle memories going through those chords. And then what he plays in his right hand is stuff that he's confident about or familiar with or is comfortable with, and not necessarily like making the scale fit the chord exactly. Like the way I was taught and the way I kind of learned to do this, if I played this for an A altered, I'd play the altered scale. You know, that's the scale. So I would use the B flat, but he used B. And then we've got D7 here. And you see he's on G there, which doesn't really fit the chord very well until he gets to that. So like I say, he's got the line going on with this half of his brain and the chords with this half of his brain. And, you know, they're not necessarily always communicating with each other. So now that's a pretty nice line, you got to admit. So, little enclosures, right? And here, it could have been meant to do that, or maybe he's just thinking C7 still. That's like, you know, the rootless voicing there. Now, you can't really tell me what scale that comes from, and I don't think he's thinking about any scale. Somebody down in the comments is going to say it's the, you know, I don't know, the Egyptian minor scale or something, or the major Phrygian scale or something, I don't know. But it's just a melody. But right there's a little bit of the diminished scale too, so. Makes sense on F major. Makes sense there. Great enclosures over here. Right, we get up to that one, and then an extra long enclosure there. Great enclosures here on the C. Right, up to that one, up to this one, and then around the block to get to that one. Jumps right to that A chord. going to the A7th. And there, this is like a G altered. It's an F minor 7 flat 5 over a G. Gives you that G altered sound. And they really would think of these chords as like, a G 7th, but you're thinking F minor 7 flat 5 or A flat minor 6. I know Art Tatum thought of it this way because he will do these little, arpeggios on the minor 6 chord over a G there. And it's just a G altered dominant, but there's lots of different ways to think about it. And thinking of a minor 6 chord up half a step will give you that. And right there, again, it's a little different than in the beginning where he went. Now he did this. Same thing, really. All right, now, I asked my wife, I said, what does this remind you of? Because he does that several times. He does it down here, like that, and then he does over here. So, what cartoon character comes to mind? I'll reveal that in a minute. Right here, I divide that up into 2 little pieces. That part, and then come down here and go. All right. So one thing I picked up from just practicing this solo is just kind of jumping around to different things. My playing, I connect everything and make one scale go into another and all that kind of stuff. But he jumps around a little bit more than I do, and I really kind of like that. One reason I picked this solo was because I thought, when I listened to it, I said, that guy sounds a little like me. I kind of play a little like that. But then when I played some of these lines, I was like, man, I would never do it that way, but it sounds good. All right, come on, think cartoons now. Now, okay, here it is.
Guess who?
Yeah, Woody Woodpecker. All right. I do that a lot myself, It's just part of my vocabulary as well. So, pretty hard to analyze this as to exactly. That's part of the G altered scale, but back in those days, they didn't call it the altered scale, and I don't even think they thought about it that way. And then here on C7th, that's the diminished thing again there. I guess you could say that's part of the altered scale, actually. Maybe he's thinking of it more as the F sharp, dominant scale. Anyway, it's a line that I've never. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, right here, I thought he might go like that, but the notes here are. So that's kind of like a G7th there. So like I say, his left hand is playing one set of chords, but the right hand is just playing melody. Because that's certainly like a G chord right there. Yeah. All right, so I don't know. And then right here, now how are you going to analyze this? C major. You can't. All right, you can't explain genius. I think what he's doing there is he's kind of staying on the G7 in his mind, and then kind of makes it get into the C chord. I don't know. Yeah, and then, you know, just staying with the idea of G7. Nothing out of the ordinary there. Part of the diminished scale. Or part of the, you know, you can think of it maybe as part of the A flat minor 6 chord. I think that's one reason why these guys from that particular era have such great solos, is they weren't really hung up on all those scales and stuff that we learn in college and learn from our jazz teachers, you know, the diminished scale, the altered scale, the Lydian dominant scale. And it's the same with the blues too. You know, you can learn the blues scale like this one or this one, you know. But how do you explain this? You know, it's got notes from both scales in there. So it's more about vocabulary. It's more about just riffs and ideas that you can use, and not being hung up on, oh, well, you know, I'm playing a D altered 7th chord, so I've got to play the altered scale. Nah. Or you can just not even play a scale at all and just play really cool ideas like... Now, I'd certainly be interested if anybody else has any ideas about, you know, where some of these lines come from. So if you have any thoughts about the subject, please put it down there in the comments. And, you know, I don't get that many comments, but I do read, I think, just about every single comment that people leave, unless it's on a real old video and I don't get a notification about it. But I do read your comments, and I appreciate them greatly. Trying to make it to 100,000 subscribers. I've got 80,000, almost 80,000. I think the last 20,000 are going to be pretty hard to come by. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. And let me know what you want to see in future videos, and I'll try to accommodate you. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you around.